Hey guys, I'm Urizi. This story is all about what if Naruto was sent to the world of the gods. Naruto has emerged victorious in the Fourth Shinobi War, but not without its sacrifices. Suddenly, he is pulled from his world, meets a god, and is left with a mission with a due date he knows nothing about, in a world he doesn't understand, with only a desperate hope to return home. Can he manage it? Can he succeed in a world of meddling gods, with only the Biju as his allies? Before we proceed with the story, please like and subscribe to this channel if you liked the video, and don't forget to check the description for the other works of the author if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 16, Damn. Why did you grab 3? We are going upstream, and they are 2-person canoes. I can literally walk on water. They are rapids. I can run on air. I'll return it. Percy said in colorful embarrassment, and Naruto chuckled as he watched him drag them back. Thalia and Zoe came up to stand at his sides, and he smiled at them. Heya, is there a problem? I refuse to share a canoe with a perverted goat. Okay, ride with Percy then. Zoe recoiled and glared at me. You expect me to ride with a man? Okay, ride with Bianca. She frowned. Then how will the boat move? Naruto rolled his eyes. Well, Percy is the son of Poseidon with the badass water powers thing. Ask him. Oh, and Thalia. She looked up at him with nervousness evident on her face. She was the daughter of Zeus, so water travel was probably going to suffer for her. You're going with me, we'll be following them, just not in a boat. She stared at him in confusion, before sparks ran across her eyes in excitement. You mean we are going to walk on water? Like before? Naruto grinned at her enthusiasm. Well, maybe, depends on how fast they go. If they are slow, we can run alongside, but if not, I'm gonna have to carry you. Zoe frowned as Thalia didn't actually seem adverse to the idea. If anything, she seemed overjoyed, and it bothered her. He was a man, he may be from another world, and kind, smart, and not that bad looking, but he was still a man. Why is he different? Naruto, can we talk for a moment? Zoe asked, but her tone didn't offer any sort of no answer. Naruto recognized this and smiled. Sure. What's up? She gestured down the banks. Alone, if you don't mind. Naruto's hands drifted to his groin and he looked at her fearfully. You aren't going to shoot me, are you? I may be tough, but there is only so much I can deal with. Zoe looked frustrated and embarrassed, and Percy laughed, but immediately ducked behind the counter to avoid being seen, and good timing too. Especially since an arrow thudded into the board right where his head used to be. Zoe lowered her bow and gestured for him to follow, only he didn't move. Promise you won't shoot me? Zoe rolled her eyes, but a smile tugged at her lips. I promise not to shoot you without cause. Naruto seemed suspicious of her wording, but nodded and followed along, but he wrapped his cloak around his arms, so if he needed, he could be able to block in time. Zoe led him down the road a bit, before turning and crossing her arms, glaring at him. Why are you so different? Naruto blinked. Was I supposed to be normal? Zoe frowned. You know what I mean. Naruto shook his head. No, I don't. I've only been here a year and avoided human contact at all times. Zoe growled and stomped her foot. You were a female for a time, weren't you? Naruto nodded, and shivered. Yeah, that time really wasn't awesome. Do you guys do back strength workouts or some special stretches? 'Cause having that much weight on your chest just isn't fun. She blushed crimson and withdrew her bow. Naruto immediately brought his hands forward and surrendered, hoping to appease her. She seethed, but put her bow away, and Naruto sighed in relief, wondering if this was what happened to Ero Sennin, every single night, but not getting away. Naruto shivered again, and Zoe looked at him strangely, but continued. You lived among the fairer sex for quite some time, even leading other lives all around the globe. You have seen other men, why are you so different? The air got cold really quick. Naruto stared at her, emotionless. Are you serious? I witnessed and even experienced the suffering that women are forced to endure, and you expected me to participate? Naruto hissed, his eyes flickering crimson. Zoe couldn't make herself stop shivering. Naruto stared at her hard. You are not the only one who has suffered, not even close. I am not even from this dimension. Tell you what, Zoe, wanna know something about the world I grew up in? She couldn't make her neck shake her head in refusal. War. That was what the whole world was about. War and killing. I grew up in a world where people trained day and night to kill. Did you know that the average soldier had a life expectancy of 30 years? There was a war almost every week, and whether we liked it or not, we were dragged into it somehow. People died, all the time. Children were volunteering to become the next military force, starting at the age of fucking 6. Zoe stared at him horrified, and Naruto stared at the pebbles by his shoes. Yeah, life sucks, I get that, and women certainly had it harder than most men all across the board, but this world, it's nothing compared to the horrors of mine. She stared at him in partial anger and sorrow, and he only stared at her eyes with a somber light. You're lucky you have Lady Artemis. Someone so angelic and powerful to protect you, someone everyone feared and respected. Yes, you and many more have suffered, but at least now you're safe, home, and loved. Naruto turned and walked away. I never got the chance, I never had anyone. And now, when I finally gained the power to be that someone, that person to protect everyone, I was taken from them. Naruto disappeared around the corner before Zoe could say anything, and she kicked herself. She didn't want this to go this way, but, regardless, she had her answer. Naruto sighed as he walked back, trying to dispel his anger with a few deep breaths. Blinking at the feeling he was being watched, he noticed Thalia's and Percy's expressions. No, I'm fine, ready to go? Zoe will be out in a bit. They looked suspicious, and nodded, loading into boats. Zoe came back and sat with Bianca, and Percy with Grover. Everyone stared at him expectantly, and he responded by shoving his head in the water. Naruto would have laughed, but couldn't make himself do it. Zoe really got under his skin, he revealed way more than he wanted to. He would have to make sure he silenced her before she shot her mouth off at her patron. The Olympians would figure out what he wanted before he could prepare, and he didn't want to know what they would make him do to get what he wanted. Percy came back up and was about to warn them, when water spirits appeared and shoved them forward at high speeds. Naruto sighed and grabbed Thalia with a startled yelp as a response. Sorry, you can't run at that speed for dash. I can too. Naruto looked surprised, before shrugging, and created 2 clones, which immediately transformed into 2 ankle bracelets and attached themselves around her ankles. She looked skeptically, and when she stepped on the water, her face morphed into glee. Naruto grabbed her wrist and led her into a sprint, where she followed with some difficulty, but they were gaining on their comrades. Thalia yanked her hand free, and Naruto only chuckled as she ran around, laughing as she created small ripples. She sped up and slowed, which kinda got annoying after a while, but they eventually came up with the canoes. Naruto smiled down at the Naiads, and they blushed and giggled at him, to which Naruto could only grin playfully. He picked up speed a bit, and they kept in pace with them. Naruto started to laugh, before he created a clone and it picked Thalia up. She gave a small cry of dismay, before Naruto grinned at her, and her complaints melted. Naruto grinned down at the Naiads with a challenging wink, race yeah. And then he took off so fast the water exploded beneath him. The Naiads looked astonished at this, and the 2 grinned at each other, before one tossed her boat to the other, who pushed with both arms, and grinned at her sister. And she took off in pursuit. Naruto was running peacefully across the water's surface, until he heard the surging of water behind him. Naruto smiled as he turned and saw the quickly approaching Naiad, who was giggling as she charged at him. Naruto's heart surged with competitive fire, infecting his smile, and started picking up his pace until they were neck and neck with each other. The Naiad was giggling like a gossip girl who was just told the most popular guy at her school was just caught with having a girlfriend nobody knew about. Naruto increased his speed, and she kept pace with him. Naruto only laughed aloud and took off at a spring, leaving her in a blur. It only shocked him to see her smiling at him playfully, and then speeding up to catch him. Naruto felt like they were playing a game of tag, trying to catch the other before the race ended. It was so fun. Until she slowed down. And then Naruto slammed into a wall. Spiderweb cracks sprung across the gray concrete wall, and the Naiad giggled at him as she slowed to a stop next to him. laughing quietly and patting him on the back as she separated himself from his indent. Naruto looked at the wall in shock and a bloody nose, and started laughing childishly. The Naiad blushed and laughed with him. It took a while for the others to catch up, though Thalia looked a bit annoyed. The rest were glad the ride was over. The Naiads giggled at Grover, who fell out with swirls in his eyes. The hunters had their hair blow backward, and Percy's already wind-blown hair was standing on end. The Naiads and Naruto laughed for a few moments, and when Percy thanked them and let them go, the two sisters snuck up and kissed Naruto on both cheeks. He blushed crimson at the sudden advance, and the Naiads sported a happy red tint to their own cheeks before dissolving into water. Everyone was speechless for a minute as Naruto stared at the water with a bashful look and a hand over his mouth and chin. Grover broke the silence. He was looking at Naruto with the largest puppy dog eyes he had seen in this world, and crocodile tears were streaming out. "No fair. Why do you always get lucky?" Naruto snapped out of it, snorting at the comment with an elongated nose, turning away. "It's a habit, Lady Luck owes me." Thalia looked confused. "She owes you?" Naruto shrugged and said nothing, though Zoe could see the conflict at the back of his eyes. "He isn't telling me something. There was more to it, something worse, something darker." Zoe thought with slight trepidation. She remembered when they asked him to clarify on his origin. Zoe shook her head. "You said it again, this world, what do you mean? Were you originally not?" Naruto's expression darkened. "Yes, I am not. I haven't been in this world for more than what you call a year. And after that?" Phoebe looked less than believing. "Where do you come from then?" "Hell." Naruto's lips curled into a small, cruel smile. "Yeah, something like that. If something worse than being raised in a world of World War was the norm, what would qualify as being hell?" Naruto turned to look at what he hit, and he stared at the massive metal construct that blocked his path. "The Hoover Dam, it's huge," Thalia said in partial reverence. "We really should have brought Annabeth, she would have been so happy to see this place." Grover muttered, and Percy laughed. "Yeah, and then we would never have left." Thalia snorted, before looking up. "How are we going to get up there?" Grover jutted over to the left. "I saw an unused trail a little ways back." Thalia and Bianca just looked at him when Percy spoke. "Yeah, we aren't goats. We aren't going to make it." Grover looked affronted. "You could too." "No." Naruto said, a grin on his face. "I have a better idea." Everyone immediately stepped away from his grin. It was creepy. Naruto created a clone, and with a little effort, he threw his straight up the side. It zoomed up, before landing on the side of the building a few paces from the top. Naruto turned to them. "All right, Semir." "What?" "Wait." "Why?" Bianca screamed as he chucked up the side. She rocketed up the dam, and as she reached her zenith, the clone reached out and caught her, before depositing her limp body on the ground next to the wall. Naruto turned back to the rest of his group, who were looking at him in fear. "So, who's next?" Some evil stares and promises of pain later, Naruto sent a burst of his chakra through them, and they all visibly calmed and relaxed. After that, they went for a small tour, indulging in some damn jokes, and leaving a confused Zoe to wonder what the hell was so funny. The girls left after a bit to go do whatever, and Naruto, Grover, and Percy were left standing alone, wondering various things. And then a sea cow decided to join them. "Moo. What the hell?" Naruto turned to the origin of the noise, and, well, wasn't sure what to think. "Bessie? What are you doing here?" Percy asked, genuinely concerned. "Bessie? Really?" Naruto said sadly, and Grover just looked at him in amusement while Percy looked embarrassed. Bessie mooed at him distressfully, before doing a somersault and vanishing beneath the waves. Naruto found this very bad. He may not speak, cowfish, but he knew a warning when he saw one. He worked with summoned animals himself, no way he would ignore this. Naruto immediately tensed, before looking down the dam road, and seeing two pale security guards. Their clothes flickering in and out, revealing their skeleton bodies. Naruto hauled Grover and Percy to their feet, before shoving them towards the visitor center. "Find the others, I'll slow them down." "Naruto." There is more than two, from the looks of it, they probably have us surrounded. Grover said nervously. Naruto turned and grinned at them. Don't I know it? He said with a grin, before clones appeared around him. They all looked at each other, before running in different directions. I'll stall them, but not forever. I'm not a demigod, so they will try to get past me rather than anything else. Now go. You have 10 minutes. And then he charged at the skeletons. Percy and Grover ran for the doors. Just as they left, they could see Naruto colliding with the first and knocking it away like a bowling pin with a double-legged sidekick. Dynamic entry. Chapter 17, Fox. Naruto's clones had dispelled. They were limited by what they could do in a public setting. They wouldn't follow him when he disguised himself as Percy, they ignored blows, and when they had enough, they shot his clones. It wasn't looking good. Where the hell were they? He said 10 minutes, damn it. Gunshots rang out, and he immediately dived backwards. Naruto sent himself through the lunch area's windows. He went skidding across the floor, and sighed, he really needed to work on that. His attention always seemed to just fucking wander. As he stood up and brushed the glass off, he turned to see Zoe, Thalia, and Bianca sitting right in front of him, unwrapped burritos ready to be eaten. He looked at them in shock, completely blown away. He gritted his teeth in annoyance, my Kami, our Percy, and Grover completely useless. He whispered venomously. He turned to the girls, who were on their feet and weapons drawn. Okay, skeletons are here, they have us surrounded. Fun fact, they can disassemble their arms and legs and use them to fuse both their arms together, creating double the power. Zoe paled, and Bianca looked at the window. Is that how you got sent up to the second story? Naruto shook his head. Nah, I jumped. He turned when he heard a loud bang behind him. Grover and Percy burst thought the cafeteria doors. Guys. We got trouble. They said, their words dying in their throat when they saw Naruto. I gave you guys 10 minutes. What the hell were you even doing? Ran into a clear-sighted mortal. Skeletons are already inside. Naruto growled, whatever. Point is we can't kill them, so we need to run. Get ready. As the demigods and company started to hastily pack up, the elevator doors dinged open, and in stepped 3 skeleton warriors, chattering to themselves as they wobbled towards us. Naruto grimaced, but then an idea struck him. Son Goku. Need Tsunade strength or higher. Gimme all you got. Haha. My time to shine. Blow them away. Naruto ran forward, before rearing his arm back like Sakura used to do, and pushed his own chakra into the blow as Son Goku added much more. He gave a primal roar and released his now glowing red and orange fist, striking the lead skeleton in the chest. Boom! The air shockwave from the released fur alone blew the walls and chairs back, cracking the floor under their feet. The skeleton had his ribcage shattered to shrapnel, his arms and legs smashed so deep into the walls they could wriggle free to heal again. Naruto screamed in pain as his arm fell limp to his side, but didn't stop. He lunged at the second, and as it swung at him, he ducked under, and heel stomped the skeleton's head in, smashing it into the floor with a massive crash. The floor shattered like glass, and his teammates were sent flying back from the shockwave. Run. I'll catch up. Naruto shouted at them, before creating a clone and following them. Naruto turned back to the remaining skeleton, and a blue swirling ball appeared in his left hand. Congratulations Bonebag, you are to be the first to feel this family technique on this world. He said, before rushing forward. The skeleton seemed to realize the danger it was in, and started to fire at him. Naruto charged forward, the bullets colliding with his technique and dissolving like flies hitting an electric swatter powered by a nuclear power plant. He slammed the technique into the skeleton's head with a roar, and bellowed out. Rasengan! The quest members heard another boom and turned to see a wave of dirt appear in the tunnel behind them. As it settled, they saw Naruto run in, or more like hop, as his other leg was now useless as it dragged behind him. Are you serious? What are you doing? I've only got one leg and I'm still faster than you. Are you really children of the gods? Naruto said in outrage, before hopping past them with astounding speed. Thalia growled at his insinuation and followed him. the others soon following suit. They made it back to the ground floor, and saw a black security van pull up at high speeds, almost crushing a few old people under it. 3 skeletons hopped out, and Naruto snarled, before roaring like a bear and punching the ground with his good hand. The ground cracked under the blow, and the skeletons stumbled. Naruto backhanded the group behind him to keep running, and he followed them. He created several clones, shadowing them as he went. "Kukuo, how's the healing going?" "Well, this had to happen eventually. This would be the next stage in growing accustomed to us if you wanted to live. Letting your body grow adapted to our power is your only hope of prolonging your life. If I die, I die. How's the healing? Don't get snippy." She chastised. Honestly, she was such a mom. "It's going remarkably well. Lucky you, I was prepared for this. Your arm and leg will be up and running in a few minutes." Naruto nodded, before feeling out his arms and leg, noticing he could move and use them. It just hurt like a mega bitch. "Great. Pretty soon, we're surrounded in a semicircle, keeping us from fleeing." "Shit." Naruto cursed, before turning to his clones, who were taking bullets for their teammates, dispelling at a terrifying pace. "Kome, can I use your wings?" "No, you won't be able to carry everyone. Your clones can't make wings." Naruto growled in annoyance, thanking Kome, and closing his eyes. He needed to focus. "Thalia. Pray to your dad," Percy suddenly said. Thalia looked annoyed by this. "No. He never answers." "Just try." "No. He will answer this time." "Says who?" "Athena, I think." Thalia glared at him, before closing her eyes and moving her lips in a silent prayer. Percy joined her, and Grover looked hopeful. And nothing happened. Naruto sighed. The Olympians were not doing themselves any favors. Naruto sighed, before turning to Zoe. "Hey, if I don't wake up after this, leave. I will find you again, don't worry about it." "Naruto," Thalia said, "whatever you're thinking dash. It's a great idea, yeah I know," he said with a cheeky grin, before flexing his arm forcing his body to move. He ran forward, before stopping and taking a deep breath, making sure he had all the skeleton's attention. "Hey Kurama, you know, we have never done a full body transformation. I've always had your avatar, but you have hardly ever had a chance to come out and play around, have you?" Naruto said to himself, thought Zoe and Grover heard it, and remembered the name from the battle with Talos. "You want to try that now?" Naruto grinned. "Aw come on, I had to catch up to Octopops eventually, and that day is today." Kurama grinned, before they both clapped their hands together in unison. "Alright kid. Let's go." Naruto grinned, before turning to the others, his eyes swapping for their crimson counterparts. "Hey guys, run the first chance you'll get. They won't follow, trust me." "Naruto. Whatever it is, don't you dare dash. Biju art." Naruto whispered into the air, before his body burst with chakra, his blue-green twirling in harmony with crimson-red and a golden-yellow. "Unison," he said to the wind, and he exploded outward with chakra. His team was blasted backwards to the gold angel statues, and they watched in horror as Naruto's form started to ripple, before he hunched over, and exploded outward. In his place, was a massive 9-tailed fox. In the flesh, it was a sunburnt orange, with massive long ears, fangs the size of cars, and eyes the size of humans. The creature hissed out a roar, swinging its tails around for the fear factor. The skeletons were rattling in their bones from the vibrations the creature was making, and the waves of power it exuded were terrifying. "So, you're the pests my Jinchuriki has been dealing with," the fox said with a deep, malicious voice. It was so close to fear itself it could only be described as demonic. "So tiny," it said, before crushing a skeleton to dust under its massive finger, and then letting out a terrifying screech of fear at the remaining skeletons. "Unkillable? Ha! Let's test that." The fox then went about demolishing the skeletons, smashing them to dust, before watching in fascination as they reconstructed themselves. They tried to shoot him, bludgeon him, stab him, hell, even tried to strangle him, but nothing worked. As they fought, or more like played in the fox's case, the golden angels approached the other quest members, and brought them under their protective wing. After some haggling, a few useless taunts and Thalia throwing her weight around, the angels agreed to take them away. Except when they told them the giant fox was their friend. It was at that point the angels seemed to notice the giant demonic fox, and hurriedly grabbed the kids, before taking flight and leaving him behind. Wait! Thalia screamed, but the angels ignored her, intent on saving their charges and taking them west, heading for San Francisco, their destination. Naruto! San Francisco! Percy shouted back, hoping those giant ears weren't worthless. The fox's head tilted in their direction, before he rose up to full height and ran after them. It shook the earth beneath its feet, and trees and roads were obliterated in every sense to the massive craters that were its footprints. It gave a bone-chilling roar, before it leapt at them, and as it ascended in the air, it began to shrink, condense, and it seemed to shed all its fur. As it ascended in the air towards them, the last of it fell away and dispersed to reveal Naruto, unconscious and badly bruised. His whole body was practically a bruise actually. If you didn't know him before, you would have probably guessed that was his skin color from the constant shade his body was. And then he reached his climax. 3 feet from them. Thalia gave a scream of dismay, and without thinking, Percy jumped after him. Zoe quickly loosed an arrow after him, shooting through his pant leg and anchoring on his belt. It was a miracle he wasn't harmed. He grabbed Naruto and prayed his comrades were enough to hold the both of them. The rope held as Grover exerted his amazing physical prowess and dug his furry hind legs into the chinks in the angel's clothes. The hunters were right at the end with Thalia in the middle, holding the rope taut as they prevented their comrades from falling. "Pull me up!" Percy screamed, and Thalia felt like launching a quip at who was afraid of heights now, but refrained, and stared to hoist the duo up. After a few tugs, a few close calls, and a screaming Percy, they managed to haul the two up. Naruto was immediately brought on top safely, everyone had a hand on him as they situated his unconscious body. "What the hell is that boy?" the angel said in dismay. "He can't be human. Celestial bronze passes right through him like a regular mortal," Zoe said, studying Naruto in a new light. "What, are we doubting him now?" Thalia said in outrage. Zoe just stared at her. "Surely you're curious, that power isn't human, and yet here he is, in a human body. Have you seen his body? It's a giant fucking bruise. But why? Maybe he doesn't want to say. You heard that creature, it called him a, Jinchuriki." Zoe frowned. Jinchuriki, the power of human sacrifice. That was a chilling thought. Sacrifice. Percy repeated, like he was just hit with a concussion grenade. He said he was raised in hell. Bianca remembered, maybe, he really was. That fox certainly sounded demonic. "Humans, you never change." Everyone flinched and jerked their heads to the source of the voice. It was Naruto, maybe. Naruto's eyes were open, but the crimson eyes were different somehow. They were the same as before, but the malice and danger it held was nearly 100 times more potent. "He sacrificed his body and possibly years off his life to save you, and you're concerned about what he is, then the fact that you wouldn't be alive otherwise. You disgust me." They looked at him in shock as the bruises all across his body started to heal, the swelling decreased, and his muscle mass began to repair itself and even grow. "The brat is too generous, saving such worthless meat bags at the price of his life. I will never understand that." The voice grumbled, "And yet, he does it anyway, what an idiot." Thalia and the rest were only staring at him speechless. "Naruto." Naruto turned to face her. "No maggot, I am not Naruto." Zoe stepped forward. "Who are you?" Naruto turned to her, his crimson eyes glowing. "Zoe Nightshade, if you weren't under the kit's protection, I would kill you on the spot." Flinch. "He has done nothing but protect you, aid you, entertain you, hell, he even fed you, and you still doubt him. I repaired and healed his testicles myself, and if I had my way I would have butchered you and left your carcass to the ravens." She had the decency to look ashamed, but not for long. "He is a male, he is not trustworthy." "Humans are untrustworthy, you ungrateful wretch. I've been around for more than 4 times your lifespan. Do not dare to presume to know what I know. My partner has been scorned, tortured, and mentally destroyed by your cursed race. My only regret is I didn't kill the lot of you when I had the chance. The voice seethed, barely on the edge of physical rage. Red energy raced over his skin, enhancing his feral features. As he was about to lash out, a warm, kind blue and green energy reached out, and wrapped the red energy, before absorbing it and preventing it from harming anything. The voice snorted, even now, unconscious, beaten till he can't move, and suffering, he protects you. Humans, you never change. The voice smoldered, before looking at the sky, its crimson-red eyes slowly dimming. Humans, and you call us monsters. And then the presence vanished. Even the angels were speechless as the presence left, leaving Naruto's unconscious body to heal, which was looking pretty good actually. Percy took some water from his bottled stash he always kept and ran it over Naruto's arms and legs, frowning. What is it? Thalia asked uncertainly, still concerned about the whole demonic voice thing. His bones, there are more fractures than actual solid substance. He said with a frown, and his muscles, Jesus, I'm not even going to say. He said with concern. I don't have enough water here to even begin to heal him. He really tore himself apart doing that, whatever. Bijuu art, unison, Grover muttered. Everyone looked at him, and he looked nervous, that was what he said before, you know. Bijuu art, huh? Everyone looked to Zoe, who was also contemplating. What the hell are you, Naruto? Chapter 18, Information. Where you guys wanna land? Asked a bronze angel, a smile on his face for some reason. There. By the Embarcadero building. Zoe pointed to the angel as she climbed onto his shoulder. Good call, me and Frank can blend in with the pigeons, an angel said, before beginning their descent, despite the ludicrous looks on their riders' faces. The small group touched down in the early morning, with only a small amount of people up and about. They scared a homeless man pretty bad, but that was the only mortal that noticed them, so silver lining. They hauled Naruto's now almost fully healed body off the angel's back. His massive bruises were all but gone, and his bones were once again whole. The last evidence of his injury was a faint bruise line on his throat. The group handled him gently, even the hunters, and when they reached the ground, they cleared a small space and let him down gently. That sat around him for a few minutes, watching as the last of his bruises disappeared, and when he was perfectly healed. Nothing happened. They stared at his unconscious body for a few more moments, before turning to Zoe. So, what do we do, princess? Thalia said in curiosity. Zoe didn't even retort at the nickname and looked over the area. We can't afford to stay here. We have 3 children of the big 3 with us, the longer we stay here, more likely we are attacked. We only have until tomorrow before the solstice, so all due haste is required. They all nodded in understanding, before looking down at their unconscious teammate. So, who is gonna carry him? The old man of the sea, that's him. Zoe nodded at Percy, yes, that is Nereus. Why is he homeless? I don't know, but don't ask him, you only get one question. Huh. Zoe and Percy stood at the edge of the docks, staring at an aged old homeless man chilling by the ocean waters. He was dirty, disheveled, and his eyes seemed to stare forward with a permanent angry expression. He was fat, he had a large white grubby beard, but became yellow over time. Zoe and company decided that he needed a proper disguise, so walking a little ways away, breaking a few locks, and stealing some merchandise, Percy was dressed for the part. He was in a ragged flannel shirt several sizes too big with an extra large pair of torn jeans and shoes that looked like scraps of cloth with rubbed on the bottom. And you know what she said when she was done? A typical teenage male vagrant. What even is a vagrant? Percy hobbled forward, stumbling every few steps. Other homeless people saw him move on, and didn't pay him any mind. Percy stumbled past a few more groups, smelling each one. He wasn't sure why, but the fragrant weapons seemed to invade his nostrils like America did on the beach of Normandy. He kept moving, hobbling forward, and once he got onto the pair, he started to mentally prepare himself for the battle up ahead. He moved behind the old man, and before he could do anything however, the old man turned to him. Beat it, sea brat. Percy looked visibly shocked at that, and Nereus glowered, "I can smell the sea on you, you're that upstart's son aren't you? Well fuck off, I'm not doing any favors for Barnacle-Beard's son." Percy shook his head, "I'm sorry, I think, but I need information. I'm on a quest to dash. Get lost." Nereus bellowed, before standing up and glaring at the boy. Percy stared at the man, before glaring back. "I'm not leaving until I get what I want." Nereus growled, before launching forward, surprising Percy. He figured Nereus would have tried to run, not fight him. Percy tried to fight, but the old man was surprisingly strong for his age. His grip was like iron as they grappled, and Percy was quickly losing strength. He tried to drag the old man into the water, but Nereus only roared in rage and threw him back onto the docks. "Do you think I am a fool? I know your father, you blasted son of the sea god. I will take your life here and now," he screamed, before lunging forward, pulling out a bone knife from the back of his ratty pants. Percy paled at this, and the sea answered to his call. It rose from the shore and attacked Nereus in a sweeping wave. As it hit, Nereus shrunk down into a lightning-quick fish, before he swam through the violent wave and landed back on the docks in his human form. Ocean water clung to him like a wet robe as he shook his yellow beard and charged Percy again. "I will kill you," he screamed in rage. Percy rolled back and reached into his pocket for Riptide to defend himself, but Nereus suddenly threw his weapon at him, flying at high speeds. Time seemed to turn sluggish as Percy tried to draw his sword in time to block the attack. He realized in horror as he started to move out of the way as it came closer. "I'm not going to make it." Percy managed to jerk to the side in time, missing his torso. However, the dagger dug deep into this sword arm, forcing him to drop his uncapped pen and to stumble backwards. He made a jump for the sea, but Nereus changed again. He gave out a battle cry as he all of a sudden expanded into a massive killer whale, on the dock. With a grunt, he swung his tail like a club, batting Percy's bleeding form away from his father's domain, and sending him careening onto the docks farther back. He transformed back to his human form again, breathing in deeply before grinning like a madman and advancing on Percy. Percy was rattling for breath as his now broken body was moving towards the ocean. Nereus stepped onto the boy's back and picked up his bone knife. "I hope you can see this, Poseidon. Watch and never forget how I slew your favorite son." Nereus bellowed in rage, before driving his dagger downwards with an impressive amount of force. A blur streaked across the docks, cracking the wooden boards beneath its feet, before colliding with Nereus with a boom and the crack of bones. Nereus screamed in pain as he fell back. The blur stood up, and revealed itself to be a blonde in a white cloak. Naruto stumbled a bit to regain his balance. Nothing better than another human for a break, Padha. Kurama laughed in his mind, and Naruto did his best to ignore it as he shuffled over to Percy and picked him up, before examining his wounds and looking at Percy's bleeding face. "Dude, who told you fighting an old being that hates you and your father's guts, alone, was a good idea? What the hell were any of you thinking?" Percy would have replied, but Naruto took a running start forward, before throwing Percy's body into the sea. Naruto turned to Nereus, who was just making it to his feet and grunting in pain as he pulled his own knife out of his stomach. He probably landed on it in the moment, trying to see Yushi and his fall. Naruto remembered all the jokes at the academy about falling over and landing on your own kunai. He didn't actually think it was possible until now. Naruto squared his shoulders and faced Nereus with a serious gaze. "Hello, I have a question, but you don't want to answer it, huh?" Nereus glared at him. "Demigods, you're all the same. Wait, I don't smell divine blood in you. Who are you?" Naruto grinned at him winningly. "Finally. Someone who actually believes I'm mortal. Man. This is awesome. I thought I was going to have to end up going to Olympus to explain to everyone that I don't have a godly parent. So glad." Naruto said with clasped hands and crocodile tears. Nereus just stared at Naruto in disbelief, before pointing his bloodied dagger at the blonde and glaring. "Leave." Naruto cocked his head to the side. "Aw, come on, I'm trying to save a goddess here. You know, Artemis? Goddess of the hunt, maidenhood, and the moon. You do realize that if she doesn't come back before the solstice, the gods are going to be in uproar." Just try and guess who'll be in the top 5 of people being interrogated, repeatedly. Nereus twitched, and Naruto stared at him, childishness gone. He wasn't the blonde idiot anymore, he was a World War veteran, an assassin, a man forged from years of bloodshed. Nereus seemed to recognize the change. I will just have to hide. The gods are not almighty. There are places I can hide that would be away from their eyes. He said smugly, before flicking his blade at Naruto, beat it brat. Naruto grimaced, I don't want to do this, but I need to. He said, and then in a blur of speed, he appeared behind Nereus, who whirled around in surprise at the mortal's speed. Naruto kicked the backs of his legs in, causing the fat man to fall to his knees. Naruto slammed his neck with a downward elbow, forcing his head to rock. He kicked out with his leg to knock the knife from his hand. As it was falling, a clone popped into existence and appeared in front of the old man, knife point at his throat. I'm sorry, but I can't be released from my mission until she returns. Please surrender, I don't want to harm you. Nereus seethed under his own knife's point, all right brat, you win. Naruto smiled, and nodded. The clone rose from his crouch and grinned, before handing the blade back to the old man of the sea. He gave a playful salute, and then puffed into smoke, his presence vanishing. Nereus watched the smoke vanish with a grimace, before turning to Naruto with a glare. One question per capture, approach seeker, and ask. Naruto flinched, remembering the oracle said almost that exact same thing. He opened his mouth to speak, but Percy shot from the water, landing on the dock, fully healed and ready to rumble. He pulled out his pen, and extended it into its sword. He settled into a defensive stance, glaring forward. And then seemed to realize what was happening. He stood there for a second, before wordlessly capping his sword and shoving his hands in his massive baggy pants pockets. Naruto just stared at him, before turning back to Nereus, who was glaring pointedly at the boy. Naruto sighed and snapped his fingers to regain his attention. Hey, question time, ready. Nereus glared at Naruto, but nodded, your question. Naruto opened his mouth again, but then froze. I could ask how to get home. Naruto choked on his words, he could get home right here, he could find the way. What should he do? He could, but he couldn't, but he could, but he can't. Kit. Naruto shivered suddenly, before turning to Percy, who had the other questers gathered around him checking for injuries. Hey. You guys ask the question. Everyone looked to him in confusion, but it looked like only one of them understood. Grover walked up and put a hand on his shoulder, smiling sadly. Hey man, thanks for this, I'm an empathy, I can sense emotions from almost all living things, I can almost hearing your emotions screaming at you dash. Thanks. Naruto interrupted with a big smile on his face. I'll be by the road, come on back when you're done yeah. Grover nodded sadly, and everyone else watched him leave in confusion. Naruto swiftly walked around the corner of a building out of their sight, before slamming his fist into a wall. There was a dull thud followed by snapping. Naruto slammed a fist into the wall, spiderweb cracks streaking out like lightning as his head hung on his shoulders, a dark aura around him. Kit, it's okay, we will find another way. Kurama said neutrally, though on the inside he was concerned. An emotional Naruto was a dangerous Naruto. Shikaka seemed to be enjoying the emotional waves, and Madatabi was comfortingly stroking Naruto's coils with her chakra. Her warmth soothing him like a hug. Naruto let out a shaky breath and had some sand from the small ground on the back of his waist to fill in the cracks. He sighed to himself and pressed his back against the wall, before sliding down and splaying his legs outward. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, he was in front of Kurama. Kurama, what should I do? Our plan is slow, and my meetings with the Olympians are fleeting, can we really dash? Tell me Naruto, when did you give up hope? Naruto snapped his head up, eyes burning, I have never given up. You know that. Then what has changed? Why are you here, sniveling like a boy with a scrapped knee? Grow up. Things change, the tides of life are unprecedented, uncoordinated, and fluid. They will always seek to pull you under. I know that. Then why are you here? Because I can't lose you guys. Naruto screamed out, making the water ripple underneath him. Kurama stood there, waiting. Naruto took shaky breaths, trying to get a hold over himself, but he kept cracking. Every damned moment in this place I could lose you, all of you. I hate that. You're the only precious people I have left. I can't. I have to protect you. Naruto shouted, tears sprouting from his eyes, and now that I finally have a chance, I can't take it. Kurama stood there in silence, staring at the boy beneath him. He hated seeing the boy like this, a sniveling mess of despair. Are you done? Naruto snapped up to look at Kurama. He opened his mouth, but he stopped when he saw the other Bijuu wandering in, gathering around him in a massive circle. He watched as they all stood on their haunches around him, staring at him with concern and affection. Naruto was speechless as he felt comfort wrap around him. It was soothing. We know the risks, Naruto, and we aren't going anywhere. Isabu said evenly. Do you doubt our power? From your little spat with Ares, even Shukaku is above them in strength. Son Goku said with a thump of his chest. We will not die, Naruto. We are here, and we don't plan on leaving for the higher plane to see our father just yet. Kukyo said with a serene confidence. You may be a little larva, but together, with all of us, we have nothing to fear. Komei said with an upbeat tone. Yes. No undying flesh sack will end our existence. Shukaku said menacingly. Everyone stared at him for a moment, before pretending he didn't say a thing. Your compassion and strength aren't to be underestimated. Your hope alone is enough to light the way. Jiyuki said sagely. Nothing will happen. If any woman so much as tries, I will burn them. Madatabi said angrily. Blink. Child, you aren't alone here. Don't ever doubt it. Saiken said in a cheerful voice. Naruto swiveled his head around to watch them all, and then he looked down, a tear sparkling as it fell to the rippling water under him. Geez, I must have looked really pathetic, huh? He said under a mop of hair. Is the kitten embarrassed? Madatabi said playfully, before rubbing her flaming cheek against his back. Naruto chuckled, before raising his fist in the air. He felt contact, and then the weight built as each Bijuu laid a hand on top of each other's. Naruto finally looked up, smiling like a newborn son. All right. No more tears. Even if it takes years, I will return you home. The Bijuu chuckled at him, before nodding. Yes, now go, your teammates are in trouble. Naruto nodded, before closing his eyes and vanishing from the cave. As he left, all the Bijuu suddenly turned somber. Now, we have another problem. They looked at each other, before turning behind them, and seeing larger, more dangerous cracks appearing in the tunnels. We need to find a way to keep him alive, and fast. Naruto blinked his eyes open to the real world, before slipping into the shadows and creeping around. Voices that weren't his friends were speaking, and he didn't like the tone they were taking. He crept across the docks, before grinning as he reached the beach. Hey, Shukaku. What's up? Yeah, no, I've got a bunch of people that need to die, wanna help? Shukaku gasped. Ah. You shouldn't have. Naruto grinned, placing both hands on the sand and letting Shukaku push his influence through. It was hard to keep it suppressed, but Naruto kept a lid on it. He couldn't wait to see their surprised expressions. Maybe Shukaku really was rubbing off on him. Chapter 19, Offer. Surely it's clear, a strange man said, this is your moment. This is why Lord Cronus brought you back to life. You will sacrifice the Ophiuchus. You will bring its entrails to the sacred fire on the mountain. You will gain unlimited power, and on your 16th birthday, you will overthrow Olympus. Everyone in their group paled. A man Naruto didn't recognize who was standing in front of them, armed guards behind the mystery man. Expressions of realization and fear crossed their faces as they tried to not look at Thalia. Everyone was afraid of her choice, though Percy looked slightly relieved. He turned to Thalia, probably wondering what she was doing. Thalia was hesitating, she is baffled. There was a power struggle going on in her brain, and Grover could sense it. You know it's the right choice, the man said with a comforting tone, your friend Luke recognized it. You shall be reunited with him. You shall rule this world together under the auspices of the Titans. Your father abandoned you, Thalia, he cares nothing for you. And now you shall gain power that surpasses his entirely. Crush the Olympians underfoot. Like they deserve. It will come to you, use your spear. Thalia. Percy shouted suddenly, snap out of it. She only stared at him, unable to think clearly. She looked like she had just fallen out of her tree all over again. But, I don't dash. And then hell came up to say hello. Sand exploded from underneath the wooden boards. It surged upwards with a force, with vengeance, and quickly entombed everyone. The mortal guards raised their weapons to shoot them group, but Zoe loosed some arrows that let loose a yellow cloud that nearly made her allies fall over from the stench. It raised its captives above the ground and packed itself so tight only their eyes could move. I leave for a few minutes, just a few minutes. A voice sighed loudly. The demigods turned in surprise to see Naruto standing in the beach below them, grinning at them. Hey guys, that weird guy was kind of annoying, he wasn't helping, was he? Naruto said cheekily, before the sand beneath him hardened and lifted him into the air like a personal elevator. Hey, why is the cow here? I thought it was Dash. And then he got shot in the back. There was a loud crack of a rifle, before Naruto fell forward, and the sand beneath him crumbled. He landed with a thud on the sandy ground, hacking up a good lung off blood. Damn it, disrupted my concentration. The half-bloods wanted to comment on that, but decided now wasn't the time. The sand fell away, and the guards rushed forward after the manticore shouted, "Get them!" Percy summoned a large wall of water from the sea and sent it careening forward and sweeping the enemy's back. Another loud rifle crack was heard, and Percy was punched backwards, but unharmed. Thanks to his Nemean lion skin. He regained his feet quickly, shielding Naruto as Thalia rushed forward with the added protection of her shield, and dragged him out of the sniper's line of fire. They retreated further down the pier, taking cover behind some tourist kiosks that dispensed useless trinkets. Naruto sat up, coughing, and after a few chest pumps, he hacked up a bullet. He examined it closely, before chucking it behind him. I knew they traveled fast, but I didn't think they would be that fast. I'll have to pay extra attention. Percy. Flee. Head to the sea and ask Poseidon for help, hide the bane. No. I'm not leaving you guys. Naruto snorted, it's not like we can go with you. I may have some control over water, but that doesn't mean I can breathe under it. At best I can hibernate for maybe a few hours, but that's it. Percy looked annoyed, and then despair crept across his features. Camp. He shouted, we need to tell them. Naruto looked at him, yeah, that would be why we need you to jump, are you not listening? Percy stood up, before slashing an old water fountain, and slicing a hole in the kiosk for a weird crystal. Nice Percy. Here, drachma. Grover said, tossing him a coin before grabbing his pipes to play. Only for them to thrown into the sea by a bullet. Grover shouted in anger with a balled fist, oi. I liked those. His anger seemed to light a fire in his eyes, and for a moment, it reminded Naruto of Lee, until another bullet ricocheted against the kiosk with a ping, and sent Grover back under cover with a whimper. Naruto noticed Percy was talking to a face in the rainbow, and that was weird, but he decided that the enemies were more important. He closed his eyes and placed his hands on his knees. He needed to concentrate for this. Kome. I'm here, what does the little larva need? She said cheekily, and Naruto sighed at the name. He knew it was because Madatabi called him Kitten, and Kurama called him Kit, but still, larva? I need wings. Are we ready to yet? Kome seemed to grin as she took the stage, fully extending all 7 wings and glowing a powerful yellow. Well, find out. Naruto grimaced and grunted, thought he pain as his back was remodeled to house wings. His shirt started to tear and eventually completely came off as purple-red dragonfly wings sprouted from his back. His wings extended, before stretching out and fanning themselves. Naruto tried not to grin at the feeling, he needed to focus. He felt out for his wings, and listened to Kome's instructions as he went. He couldn't afford to mess up, even with his durability, falling from great height unprepared would not be good. He heard Percy's gasps, before turning to Mr. D in the weird rainbow thing and say, never mind, we aren't going to die, Please go back to being useless. He was so in trouble for that later, it was great. Naruto then pushed off from his spot at lightning speed, the bullets chasing his afterimage. He shot into the morning sky with a purpose and listened to the adrenaline shout at him that the bullets were this close to hitting him. He let out an ecstatic yawp as he continued to ascend, before taking shelter in the air with the clouds and surveyed below, staring down at the scene. And then he dived. Naruto hadn't felt so alive since taking on an army of Zetsu clones by himself. He broke the sound barrier and ignored his bleeding ears as he slowly pulled up, level with the sea. The water beneath him exploded in bubbles as the wall of air he is pushing through it into chaos. He would admit later that he didn't really see much detail, only one thing remained in his memory besides the feeling. The manticore's stupid expression when he coated his hands in fortified chakra from Kome and Isabu, and at sound-breaking speeds, flew straight into the manticore's stomach. He immediately exploded into dust, leaving only a few knives as spoils of war. Naruto continued flying, before ascending again to avoid buildings and hoping he would slow down with gravity's help. Percy and Zoe dealt with the rest, while Thalia shielded them with Aegis. Naruto slowly pulled to a stop above an extremely tall building, before running down the side, retracting his wings. They hurt real badly, and he wondered if he damaged them somehow. Baka, you just used muscles you have never used before. It would be like doing a few hundred push-ups without any shinobi or even physical training. Naruto almost tripped at that, but nodded in understanding. He charged down to the bottom, before using his chakra to slow down and eventually come to a stop on the sidewalks. He noticed it was surprisingly empty. And then he heard the sirens. Oh yeah, there was a gunfight with an illegal gun squad and snipers. That probably wouldn't be legal in the city zone, would it? Naruto ran back to his group. Though his back hurt really badly, he decided that he would have to practice. I'm surprised though, the only reason your wings didn't fail mid-flight is because of your almost mythical stamina. Even Fu fell from the sky a few times. Haha. I knew it. I'm awesome. Of course, that was after she stayed in the air for several hours, and lifting heavy objects. Naruto's celebrations were cut in half, before coughing into his hands, and then shocking them in his pockets. He leaned forward and plastered on an indifferent look, and snorted. HN. Don't you dare copy the Uchiha. Kurama bellowed, and all the Biju laughed at their antics. Naruto made his way back to the group, seeing all the enemy soldiers restrained by large grapevines, and most of them were dead, shot to death given the holes in their corpses. Naruto looked to Grover. I didn't know you could do that. This is the thanks I get? Demigods. A familiar voice snorted. Naruto turned to Dionysus, the god of wine, and snorted right back, well, as I keep saying, I'm not a demigod. Whatever Nanamo. Whatever Mr. G. Dionysus seethed, it's D. D as in dash. Oh yeah, well, later diabetes. Dash. Dionysus was cut off as the rainbow disappeared. Everyone looked at Naruto, waiting for him to turn into a dolphin, and nothing happened. Hey guys. A voice called. They all looked over to see Bianca, running towards them. She stopped in front of Zoe. There is a massive presence on the top of the mount. I don't know what it is, but it's so strong it's overriding anything else I can sense. Zoe nodded in understanding, seemingly expecting it. Naruto turned to everyone. Well, now that we got rid of that, let's go free a goddess, shall we? Never done that before. Percy shook his head. We can't leave him, he is their target after all. He said, scratching the cow from earlier. Naruto frowned. That was a problem. Well, we can't travel by beach. If we are headed for a mountain, it's counterproductive. Naruto said blandly. Well, it can appear in different bodies of water. Can't Grover tell it to go back to, I don't know, somewhere other than here? Zoe asked, stringing her bowstring trying to calm her nerves. She knew something, and it wasn't being shared. Naruto eyes her for a moment, before turning back to Grover, who looked uncertain. I can go too. I'm the only one who can talk to him, I can show him the way. Percy, can you ask your dad for help? Zoe turned to Bianca, you go as well. Huh. The hunters are no doubt restless. Your presence will keep them from causing any unjust damage. Naruto grinned. Actually, they have tried to leave multiple times already. Zoe looked at me in shock. What? Naruto nodded. Yep. 11 in total. They never got past my clones though. She sighed and rubbed her forehead. I'm sorry you have to continually expend energy to keep them safe. Naruto nodded but smiled. It's my mission. I accepted this, so it only falls to me, no need to apologize. She nodded before turning to Zoe. More the reason to send you. Naruto watched the two talk, before giving Percy a nod and gesturing him to the ocean. Percy looked doubtful, but shrugged. He pushed Thalia to do it, and he wasn't a hypocrite. He walked to the water's edge, and muttered a prayer. If Zeus could do it, Poseidon sure as hell should. Poseidon, Dad, help us. Get the Ophiodorus, Bianca, and Grover safely to camp. Protect them at sea. That's a pricey prayer, gotta sacrifice. Thalia asked. Percy looked thoughtful for a moment, before a light bulb went off in his brain. He turned to the ocean, removing his coat. Grover looked weary. Hey Percy, you sure? That lion skin, it's really useful, even Hercules used it. Percy had the coat hanging in his hand. He was thinking about the cloak. It was extremely valuable. It was even bulletproof. It could shield him from all harm. His life as a demigod was bound to get rough. This would protect him, give him a chance to protect dozens of more lives. Percy's eyes flicked back to Zoe, who was studying him carefully. He remembered his dream, of how she aided him, gave him everything, and he cast her aside. He had always admired him, someone he aspired to be, but he didn't want that. He didn't want to do that, and yet he couldn't let go. He tried to force his fingers apart, but they wouldn't obey. Maybe. He took out his pen, his trusty sword. Maybe, what was better, a shield to protect, or a sword to destroy all those that would harm. And then a hand on his shoulder had him look over. Naruto was standing there, with a solemn look on his face. Percy. What should I do? Percy asked, his eyes furrowed as he stared at his items again. Go for a swim. Yay. Hey. Naruto's looked immediately morphed into a trickster's grin and shoved the demigod directly into the ocean. There was an ocean breeze, and the offering was accepted. Well, don't keep him waiting, Grover, Bianca. Get moving. Naruto said with a grin, and he only got a strange look in return, before nodding with a smile. Yeah, I'll keep Bessie safe, so don't worry, go get Artemis. Bianca nodded. Save my lady. Naruto grinned. Tell Nico I said hello, and that I'm coming back soon. Kid probably wants another tour of the sky. The satyr and hunter descended under the waves, and Percy used the water to plop him back down. Percy seemed almost relieved that he didn't have to choose, and so let it pass without comment. Naruto nodded in recognition of this, and started walking off. Well, we got a goddess to save, don't we? Never saved a goddess before, this will definitely be a first. They all just stared at him blankly as he walked off with a small hop in his step and a hum in his throat. We'll be coming around the mountain. Chapter 20, Garden. Can't this thing go any faster? Thalia asked impatiently, her electric blue eyes glaring forward, unimpressed with the results. I cannot control traffic. Zoe said coldly. You guys sound like my mother. Percy muttered. Shut up. They both snapped at him, and he visibly shrank backwards. Naruto, who was in the back with him, merely patted him on the shoulder. Best you learn to fear women now, before you lose something you can never get back. Naruto said sagely, thinking back to all those times when Ero Sennin got his ass handed to him. Percy looked at him strangely, but nodded. Are you scared of them? He visibly recoiled at the intense stare he got as a reply. Yes. Women are scary. I've witnessed hunting packs chase down a single man and beat him black and blue. I've seen in the street castrations and something much worse. He finished with a shudder. Percy was horrified at that information, and the other girls seemed intrigued by Naruto's transformation. He swallowed, deciding to go all the way. What was worse? Naruto turned to him robotically, his eyes flicking around as if checking for spies. He then leaned in and said, "Fangirls." Percy looked confused. "What? How is that dash?" "Aha!" Naruto shouted, making him flinch at the volume. "That thought right there. Deception. They are the ultimate stalker, my most feared predator. In my village, men were chased through the streets, the threat of being raped was real. They hoard together, even strategized to corner you and capture you. They would latch on like piranhas and never let go. Their hypersonic voices, and clouded eyes, I've only seen a few things that are more terrifying than that, and I have been though some shit." Percy wasn't sure how to feel after that. Zoe and Thalia had listened in, and weren't sure how to feel about that. They didn't seem to accept the idea that women would hunt men, but Zoe just shrugged. Maybe that was another reason why he was different, because he was hunted. "Of course, I never had any after me. A precious friend was the last surviving member of an extremely powerful clan, and any woman who married in was pretty much guaranteed fame, money, and power. It made him a target in everyone's eyes. I helped him dodge the swarms, but I couldn't save him all the time. If he wasn't a capable soldier, he would have been caught, and never seen again," Naruto said dramatically. They all just stared at him, even Zoe ignored the rules of the road just to look at him. Eventually, the group finally made it out of traffic, and headed off the Golden Gate Bridge. They started their climb of Mount Tam, and as they ascended, Percy vocalized a few observations. "Your driving is scary." "Ahem, I meant that the air smells like cough drops, why is that?" Zoe sighed, "Eucalyptus, dragons and such like to chew the leaves." "Why? If you had dragon breath, you would understand." Naruto listened to the conversation with a small smile. Percy reminded him of Koji in a way. A gentle, although somewhat clueless, giant. He had power in spades, but needed a sharp wit to keep him anchored. There weren't many people like that in this, however. If there was, why would the word fridge have a D but the actual name for the device, a refrigerator, not have a D? The English language made zero sense. "We are heading into heavy mist territory, consider everything an enemy from here on out," Zoe said strongly, before pulling them in. "Why?" "Atlas, monsters naturally gravitate to the presence of a titan, he holds up the sky here, forever keeping the two apart. The Garden of the Hesperides also resides here, protected by Laden and the Hespirides." Percy seemed to nod to himself. "Yeah, I remember, he was complaining about stiff shoulders when I saw him at the museum." Naruto twitched and tried not to laugh. A titan, a super powerful being that existed before the gods, was complaining about muscle pain. The mist cleared for a moment, and Naruto jerked. "Hey, I thought that ships couldn't anchor here," Naruto said suddenly, and the demigods looked over to see what he meant. There, sitting in on the coast, was the Princess Andromeda. Percy seated at the boat, and Thalia looked concerned. Zoe seemed unsure of what to say, having no idea what the deal was. But Naruto knew. "Hey, I thought I blew that up, how is that possible?" Percy looked back at him in remembrance. "Yeah, wow, I can't believe I forgot about that. How come you don't use that, tissue sauna more often?" Naruto stared at him for a moment. "You mean my Bijuu Dama?" He snapped his fingers and nodded. Cause it's like a missile. It is a bomb, a big bomb. I can't just go firing those off whenever I want. Think of the damage I cause. The reason I used it in the first place, was because it was in the middle of a body of water, and there were several enemies that needed to be destroyed on board. If I used it on land, it would be like a meteor strike." Thalia looked disbelieving, but that immediately went away when Percy nodded his head in understanding. "Damn, that thing was badass too. Wait, are you serious? What the heck is this, Bijuu Obama?" Naruto glared. "Bijuu Dama, and it's an attack of mine. A technique I learned. I've shown you how I can stick to walls and create clones of myself using my life force. Instead of releasing it, I compact it into an incredibly dense sphere, so dense that it even bends light around it. I then ignite some energy, sending it wherever. It's on the level of a meteor strike." Thalia gaped at him, and Zoe turned to him. "Then why is the ship still intact?" Naruto stared at her. "Well yeah, that was my question, wasn't it?" Percy was there when I blew it to smithereens. It evaporated the ocean and threw the coast into the air from the shockwaves. There should be no way it survived. They all stared at it, before Zoe refocused on the road. That means Cronus's army has come, more trouble for us. Naruto suddenly tensed, and Thalia was right behind him. Naruto spammed clones, creating one for each person in the vehicle. They used the henge to turn into blankets and wrapped around the passengers, earning cries of dismay, before Thalia shouted, "Out!" Naruto double leg kicked Percy straight out the door, the blanket absorbing the road rash and physical damage. Thalia did the same for Zoe, and then she bailed too. Naruto was the last one out, substituting with the clone around Thalia. There was a loud crack, followed by an immediate boom. The car exploded with light, before driving straight off the edge without a driver, soon followed by a small explosion of fire. Naruto had his arms around Thalia protectively, before letting her go, not noticing the blush, and helped her up. She looked at the car, and then scowled. "Lightning? What the heck?" She glared at the sky. "We are trying to save your daughter here." "What the fuck? Keep it down." Zoe hissed behind us, and dragged us under cover. "Laden is close, and we cannot wake him." "You mean we are here?" Percy asked in surprise, before looking around. "This is the Mount of Despair, gotta say, not feeling gloomy." Naruto cuffed Percy in the back of the head with a friendly smile. "That's my line, now keep quiet. I for one don't want to harm the dragon, way too cute to kill." Instant silence. Naruto stared at all of them. "What? It's a dragon. An actual dragon." Zoe just sighed, before silently walking forward. "Follow me, and make as little noise as possible." The group followed, but Naruto kinda wished the dragon would wake up. He wondered if maybe he knew Peleus. Naruto walked through the fog, making zero sound. He idly pondered on what Zabuza would think of this mist, and had the sudden urge to try the whole disembodied 8 points routine. Eventually, the fog cleared, and they stood in the most pristine garden Naruto had ever seen. It made the gardens at the royal palace look like a sandbox. They had entered the Garden of Twilight, and Naruto for one had a question. "Hey, Percy." "Yeah. Can you use the water in the mist?" Percy blinked in surprise, before looking sheepish. "Never tried, I didn't think of it." Naruto frowned. "Well, you can control water, can't you?" Percy blushed in embarrassment, and hurried ahead, not looking back. Naruto was honestly confused. He looked at Thalia, who was also curious. "Dude, if I could move water with my mind, I would experiment with every single liquid until I was satisfied." Thalia nodded. "Even when I discovered I was the daughter of Zeus, I tested to see if I could still be shocked." Naruto looked intrigued. "Were you?" She grinned. "Nope. The electricity arched around me, and I didn't feel a thing." Naruto grinned, but on the inside, he was jealous. "I wish I could do that. Sasuke's Chidori would have been nothing. Or you could have just let him go and saved yourself so much time and energy." "Kurama, what did we talk about?" "Negativity. You gotta chill, it'll make your fur turn white." "It will do no such thing." Thalia watched as Naruto just smiled and walked. "But you know, I think you aren't one to talk about having powers." Thalia said. "I mean, your powers are so strong. You can control sand, stick to walls, make copies of yourself on massive scales, and turn into a massive fox." Naruto twitched. "Well, those powers aren't actually mine." She frowned, and Zoe fell into step with her. "I have been wondering on that. You wield incredible abilities, and yet almost all of them aren't apparently yours. What do you mean by that?" Naruto looked confused. "What do you mean? What part of they aren't mine are you getting confused on? Does it have something to do with being called the Conqueror of Pain?" Thalia asked. Naruto twitched. "No, not really." Zoe looked thoughtful for a moment, before bopping her fist on her open palm. "What about your title as the Carrier of 9, is that is?" Naruto looked at her in surprise, shock even, and his Biju friends went silent. Is this when we would say, we've been made? Or something? I really shouldn't have let you guys watch those spy movies." Naruto twitched, before putting on a forced smile. Why yeah, you guessed it. Now is not the time to talk about it though. They completely ignored him. So, does that mean you have 9 powers that aren't yours, but you can use? Naruto almost tripped. Well, the 9 have the powers, and I borrow them, with consent. Now come on, we need to focus. Denied. What are the 9? Are they people or something? You refer to them as if they are people. Naruto hid his frustration. Can we drop this? We have a mission dash. Is it because you're a Jinchuriki? Zoe asked. Naruto froze and looked at her in horror. How do you know that word? I may have, sort of, told them. What? Are you trying to kill us all? That's it, isn't it, the power of human sacrifice. You once stated that you were raised in hell. It's because you were sacrificed for something, or to something, and you survived, and were hated for it. I'm right, aren't I? Zoe asked with a critical eye, studying him like he was under a microscope. Naruto was starting to sweat. Look, I get you're curious, but we need to hurry. Naruto, quit dancing around the question, it's not attractive. Thalia said with a huff, arms crossed. Naruto snorted, who are you, Bachin? Thalia blinked, before she glared and seethed, did you just call me a grandma? How did she even know that word? Naruto wasn't sure why she was upset. No, I said you were like her. She grit her teeth, apparently not liking the comparison. She was the last Senju. She was gifted with monstrous strength that could shatter the ground and create an earthquake in one punch. She was the best medic in all the land, and was famous for being the strongest woman in the nations. Thalia seemed to blush at that, her anger dissipating immensely. Really? What was her name? Naruto grinned, but it soon fell into a sad smile. Her name was Tsunade, Tsunade Senju, one of the kindest, most powerful influential people I ever met. She patched my body up more times than I can count. Without her, I wouldn't be here. I would be a pile of ashes floating in the wind, or a rotting skeleton in the middle of nowhere, depends how I died. That was weird. Everyone stared at him for a second, before Zoe seemed to have an epiphany. It's not just that you can't get home, it's that you don't even know how, or if it's even possible, isn't it? She said softly, but it was more of a statement than a question. That is why you left us on the docks. You can't get home, and you don't know how. You wanted to ask Nereus for a way home. Naruto just turned and walked away. Come on, we have a goddess to save, and I doubt her load is getting any lighter. After a few minutes walk in silence, with Naruto in the lead, Naruto suddenly stopped, before tensing and reaching behind him, pulling out the Nemean lion's dagger. He thanked his lucky stars it was like a kunai. He hated daggers. Nothing against them, he just didn't like them. He set himself into a defensive stance, and his presence diminished right in front of their eyes. It was like he wasn't even there. The bushes in front of them rumbled, and out stepped 4 young women who looked a lot like Zoe. They all had white Greek chitons that hugged their curves. Caramel-colored skin and silky black hair tumbled loose around their shoulders. Sisters, Zoe said with a small bit of sadness, as if knowing what came next. We do not see any sisters here. One of the Hespirides said coldly, we see 2 half-bloods, and a hunter. All of whom shall die soon. A cold feeling touched all the Hespirides' necks. Oh, so that means I am in the clear. Oh good, and here I thought I would have to end your immortal days. The Hespirides paled. Each sister had a clone to their back, blade neatly tucked under their chins. You know, I felt like killing you outright, but decided that the honor of killing you isn't mine, so I'm just gonna hold you here, until I don't want to anymore. Naruto looked over to the rest of his group. Hey, way's clear. Laden is up ahead, but don't worry. Wait for the signal and sneak past. They all looked at him in shock. The Hespirides tried to turn around and see who was holding them at knife point, but couldn't turn very far as the blade poked their necks. Go now. Naruto said firmly, and the campers complied. They walked past, and Zoe looked a tad sorrowful at passing them by, but kept moving. I'm sorry, but I must save Lady Artemis. She said, walking with a purpose forward, ignoring their hushed attempts at warning them. Naruto kept them quiet, and when they were gone, Naruto grinned, before releasing them. He blurred away as they whirled around to see him, but failed to catch anything more than a yellow blur. They seethed at being held hostage, before one of the sisters started running up. If they thought they could get past Laden, they were mistaken. The group approached the clearing, seeing the sparkling tree glittering gold, and the massive dragons with 100 heads resting on the floor. The group was skirting on the outside, trying not to set him off. Until a voice screamed out, "Laden! Wake!" The dragon's eyes all snapped open, fanning out to see where the supposed attacker was. And his eyes landed right on the group. Zoe leapt in front to try and divert it, but he was more focused on Thalia's shield. It surged forward, and she panicked and raised her shield, before the rumbling stopped. She peeked over the side to see what happened, only to nearly drop her spear in shock. Naruto was standing in front of her, his white cloak back in place and the dragon's heads all staring at him from different angles. Naruto very slowly raised his hand up, non-threatening, and held his wrist up. The dragon leaned in, and sniffed it. Hundreds of the eyes all of a sudden snapped back to Naruto, shock evident, and Naruto grinned playfully. "You recognize the smell, don't you? The smell of another dragon. A baby," Naruto said, before twitching his head over in the direction of the mountain. The group slowly made their way off. A few of the heads watched them go, but most of them remained trained on Naruto. "Laden! Kill him!" One of the Hespirides screamed. A few of the heads turned to her and hissed angrily, and she immediately paled. "Laden, what's wrong?" Naruto only smiled, before slowly walking forward, reaching forwards with a tentative hand. "You smell Peleus, the dragon I befriended back at camp. You can tell that I spend a lot of time with him, and that I protect him. You think I'm his parent, don't you? The one who is raising him." Laden's head turned to the side, which created this weird wave effect of several heads copying the movement. Naruto laughed, and rested a hand on the closest head. "You probably get bored here, staring at the same shiny apples and listening to those annoying girls tell you what to do. It's beneath your pride as a dragon, isn't it?" Naruto said sadly, gently stroking his head. Laden seemed to relax under his touch, and Naruto started to channel some chakra into his strokes, calming the creature even more, and his eyes started to drag. Naruto smiled at the dragon, and walked past him towards the tree. The dragon watched him warily, he still had a job. Naruto stopped at the base of the tree, the Hespirides were agape at seeing him there. Naruto smiled, before sitting down and crossing his legs, beckoning the dragon to follow him. The dragon almost seemed happy to do this, and coiled around the tree, nudging and gently shoving Naruto around a bit as it got comfortable. Naruto laughed as the creatures licked his cheek with a forked tongue. "Ha ha ha! Come on, Laden, you'll make Peleus jealous," Naruto said with mock chastise, and the dragon rolled its eyes. Naruto laughed at that, and started pushing large amounts of chakra through the creature's body, letting it ascend to bliss as it relaxed. Naruto smiled as Laden's eyes wavered, before closing completely, humming appreciatively. Naruto grinned. "You know, Naruto Uzumaki, friend of the Bijuu and Dragon Tamer, that's actually pretty good. Not a bad ring to it." He wasn't dignified with a response. Naruto sighed and continued working the dragon's heads. It was actually rather amusing, as the multiple heads seemed to almost line up and form a line as Naruto worked. Naruto knew he would be there for a while, he just hoped that he wouldn't be delayed too long. Chapter 21, Wait. Well, he really shouldn't have taken so long. After promises of returning, and multiple assurances that he wasn't lying, Naruto managed to break away from Laden. It wasn't the cheeriest goodbye, but it was necessary. And holy shit, was it a good move. When Naruto arrived at the top, he wasn't sure what he was seeing. It was a battle. A big one. Artemis was in chains, bearing the weight of the sky on her own. All around her, a battle was ensuing. Percy and Zoe were trying to get to Artemis and fight at the same time. Thalia and Luke were fighting it out hardcore. Ozone was the only thing he could smell as electricity kept sparking off of Thalia. Naruto glanced around the field of battle, and decided that there was only one thing to do. "Oh my god! What is that?" He screamed as loud as he could. Everyone on the battlefield froze, before turning to him in confusion. Naruto could see Percy's eyes widen by a massive margin, and he suppressed a grin. Naruto ran forward, running through the monsters as if they weren't even there, and then stopped by where Artemis was, not noticing her. She stared at him incredulously. He had just walked right past an army of monsters, a titan, and Laden, as a mortal, by himself. Naruto grabbed a random rock from beneath her, and gave her a subtle wink, before running back. "I gotta show Dad," he said with glee, before running down the hill. Everyone was in complete silence for a tense moment. Atlas seemed to regain his bearings first. Was that a mortal? On Mount Orthrus, is that even possible? He didn't see us, must have been. Damn. He looked tasty. The battle remained paused for a few more seconds, before the sound of snapping chains were heard. Everyone whirled and stared in shock as Artemis's chains were cut, and the mortal from before was standing under the sky. And then after a quick discussion, he booted her out from under it. The boy immediately sagged under the weight, and groaned as he shifted it. Boy, was it heavy. Atlas was staring at the boy in stupor, before the boy kicked his blade to Artemis. "Give em hell." For the first time in a long time, Artemis grinned with genuine pleasure. "I will leave no monster alive." And then she took off with a vengeance. "Kit, this was the stupidest thing you have ever done." Kurama bellowed at him. "Why is this so heavy?" Shukaku shouted. "You're so manly," Son Goku roared. "Guys, give me as much as I can, I need it." "Roger." Naruto felt chakra course through him as his golden Biju cloak manifested, and then something amazing happened. From Naruto's back, tails started to sprout. A sandy brown/gold, a flaming blue, an armored pincer, a molten red, a serene white, a slimy pale green/white, a green horn, an octopus tentacle, and a massive orange furry tail. They all came from him, and touched the sky. Naruto gave another roar, and he started to push up. He wouldn't just carry it, he would lift it. The ground beneath him started to crack, and Naruto upped the pressure. He created 2 clones to help him, but as soon as they tried, they burst. He growled as he watched the battle happen. Artemis being kicked around by Atlas, Percy still digging himself out a pile of rubble, and Zoe dodging and weaving as she took shots at the Titan's armor. Full Biju mode. "No, we are holding sky, we can't do anything rash." Kurama groaned, and Naruto grunted. "Shukaku, any sand nearby?" "Only what's on your skin, which is currently keeping your mortal body from smashing into paste." Naruto groaned, this sucked. It was so heavy. He didn't think even Tsunade and Sakura combined could do this. He watched as Luke managed to knock Thalia's spear away, but she body slammed him with her shield, sending him flying and skidding back with a snarl. He created another clone. It was short-lived, and it only had time to grab Thalia's spear and throw it back before bursting from the strain the original was being put under. The Biju's chakra was burning inside him, healing him, and reinforcing him as he struggled. He stood under the sky, struggling. For nearly 10 minutes. "Kit, the stress, our energies are bonding with you. Save the facts for later. Help me." "No Kit, you don't get it." "Yo, wait, is the ground shaking?" Naruto couldn't spare much focus from his current task, but he had to agree, the earth was shaking, and it was getting stronger. Naruto stared forward as he heard what sounded like a tsunami crashing through the trees. It was magnificent. All the monsters paled in fear and ran as his newest arrival appeared suddenly, slaying monsters left and right in drones, wiping them out with its massive body and poisonous breath. Standing before the army, was Laden, pissed and hissing. He saw Naruto struggling under the weight with the help on 9 unique tails, before looking down. And saw a somewhat nervous Atlas, and a slowly retreating goddess of the hunt. The dragons stayed motionless for a moment, and then charged. Atlas seemed to shake with uncertainty as the dragon came at him, fangs bared and hissing. Naruto saw what the dragon was aiming for, and he grinned. Laden surely was intelligent. The demigods leapt away as the massive dragon came charging through. Atlas tried to stand his ground, but it didn't do him any favors. The dragon sank 4 heads worth of fangs into the titan's body, immobilizing his limbs. Atlas screamed in pain as he was restrained, before he was thrown like a ragdoll at Naruto, who felt the tails recede and the sky was as heavy as ever. As the body of the Titan rushed flying at him, he loosened his grip, and felt his body being thrown backwards from the force. Atlas let out a cry of pain as his wounded limbs scrambled to adjust the weight, but it was too late, it was his again, and too soon. No! No! He roared in dismay, and Naruto lay on the ground, sweating heavily and panting. Ha ha. Take that. The first mortal to ever hold the sky, that's me. Uzumaki Naruto. He said with a weak fist pump, before falling limp to his side. Guys, a little help. He felt chakra from the beast swirl into his system, repairing it and revitalizing him. How you guys doing? How bad is it? Naruto, the stress from this task and the universal push of out chakra, it should have killed you, but because of the stress, your body was forced to adapt itself. You're not fully ready, it will take time, but you can handle it. Naruto felt his breathing slow, so, I'm not going to die. No, that's still the case, but now, we have a much stronger fighting chance, and even more time. You are the luckiest bastard I have ever met. Naruto grinned before standing up shakily and laughing, what can I say? Lady Luck really owes me. Naruto staggered around for a bit, before feeling his bearings come back and he walked straight. He could see Laden eyeing him in concern, and he laughed and petted the dragon's head, much to the shock of Artemis. The fight between Luke and Thalia had stopped again, watching with caution to see what the famed dragon's next move. Naruto laughed and gently knocked on the dragon's head, I appreciate it, but you need to guard the tree. Go back, I'll come say goodbye, don't worry. The dragon looked uncertain, but he thundered on back, the earth's heavy shakes disappearing once the dragon had reached its destination. Luke just watched in wonder as this happened, Thalia included, until she snapped out of it. She tackled him to the ground, and battled for the dominant spot, until they reached the cliff side. Thalia managed to toss his sword away, but her spear rolled from her grasp in the processes. She held him back and they were at a standoff. Wait! Don't kill him! Percy shouted, charging forward. He almost reached them too. Luke made a desperate dive for her spear, and on instinct, she kicked him away. Right over the edge. His body tumbled 50 feet, before finally coming to rest on the broken crags. The retreating army noticed this, and turned up in anger at seeing Luke defeated, and then they made a key observation. Laden is gone. Attack! Naruto sighed as he heard their battle cries, before cracking his shoulders. He was back up. Not all the way, but close. He grinned at Thalia, who was still shocked at killing her once childhood friend. Naruto set himself into a horse stance, and held his hands apart, before humming in concentration, and a strange sound started to be heard. Light started to bend around Naruto as a pure black ball started to form, and grow. Artemis watched this with wonder as it grew, and when it reached appropriate size, Naruto ignited the chakra in his hands. It shot down the cliff side, glowing a brilliant white. Naruto turned and hustled over to the other side, Percy knowing full well what it was, sprinted back with him. The hunters and Thalia looked confused at this, and then it exploded. The mortals jumped back to avoid the shockwave and Artemis, not fearing death, just watched from her spot in awe as a giant glowing dome of power roared in the sky, obliterating anything it touched. After the explosion died down, Naruto sighed. The monsters surely wouldn't charge now. They had destroyed the mothership. Naruto turned to smile at his comrades, before his eyes widened in horror as he saw a massive militia on the other side of the mountain. Well, I don't think I can play the fool anymore. Kurama, transform. No, still repairing. And if I were to rush it? Heavy damage or death, most likely instant death. Naruto grimaced, this was a problem. Senjutsu wasn't the best idea in his weakened state. Percy was wounded from the fight with broken ribs and such. Zoe's arm was broken, so no arrows. Artemis was weaponless save for his dagger, and he was running, but he couldn't use it, not without harming himself greatly. Naruto grimaced, but forced a grin instead. Artemis, I have a plan. Take this, and get as far away as you can while I stall. She looked at me in horror, I know you are strong, you held the sky, but you are still mortal. You won't survive. Naruto looked at her, his gaze hardened, and she flinched, which surprised her. I am not a child, and I am no ordinary mortal. I've been in battles and fought in wars that would make Ares piss his pants in fear. I've fought a primordial, and I survived. This battle is a piece of cake. Of course I'm still injured and only have access to a fraction of the chakra and power I did then, but she doesn't need to know that. She stared at Naruto hard for a long time, trying to find any lies. And there weren't any. She tossed him his weapon, and he handed her his cloak. It was his only covering for his upper body, but he didn't care. You have 5 minutes to get as far away as possible from here. Run, now. Keep that close, it's my lifeline. She looked extremely reluctant, but put on the cloak, and grabbed a still stuttering Thalia, and her weakened subordinate and the son of Poseidon. He watched them go, before turning to the monster army, who were grinning at him. Ah, left you all alone. A monster sneered, and Naruto giggled. No, I just needed them to leave so I can fight for real. He said with a smirk, before throwing off his weights and sealing them away. Catch me if you can. He said, before blurring at high speeds, and attacked the army. That's it for part 4. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.